Welcome to Winder Works, the official podcast of the City of Winder. Join us today as we go behind the scenes to learn from the people, projects, and progress shaping our community. Now, let's get ready to dive into the initiatives that make Winder a great place to live, work, and visit. Our guest this month is our Winder City Engineer, Mr. Gerard Brewer. Gerard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. Glad to be here. Appreciate you having me.
No, definitely looking forward to the conversation. I think engineers get a bad rap sometimes, and I'm happy for you to be able to share a little bit about what you all do on a daily basis.
Good.
So, we'll just jump right in and ask, can you share a little bit about your journey into the world of civil engineering and what got you to your current role as our city engineer here in Winder?
Well, that's kind of an interesting story. I would say that probably like a lot of young people, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My father was a civil engineer, and I really didn't know anything else to do. I was fair in math and science, and just kind of ended up there, and haven't regretted it. I've enjoyed the career. Been in municipal service most of the time, and did a little consulting. So I consulted general civil consulting for 5 or 6 years, and then worked for the city of Alexander City for 25 years. Retired from the state of Alabama and took the job over here. So it's been an interesting road to get here, but have enjoyed every minute being here in Winder.
Well, since joining the city of Winder, what have been things that you would say have been achievements that you've been able to accomplish, and then what are some of those other areas, those challenges you've noticed, accepting this role, one, moving to a new state, but being in a community, and I don't know much about where you came from in Alabama, but being in a new community that's just rapidly growing where it's nonstop every day.
That's been the biggest challenge by far. To come here and see the growth that's here, to see I can't remember the joke that Shrikant made, but it's basically just that there's just orange cones and orange barrels everywhere, and that's noticeable. I mean, the growth here is just, it's hard to even imagine. To respond adequately to that requires a lot of planning on the city's part and a lot of engineering. There's a lot of engineering involved in doing those things properly, and so we take that serious. I'd say probably the most satisfying and the biggest achievement has been really building a department from scratch. There was basically no engineering department here at all. So we just kind of got in here, and under Roger Wilhelm's guidance and Mandy's, we kind of got in here and just kind of supported. First, we were mainly just supporting development, but it's kind of grown into other things. And so we basically just created and this sounds fluffy, but a lot of policies and procedures and operational SOPs for how to operate an engineering department in a city that hasn't had one. So, as you know, Robert Cheshire came on board soon after I did, which he's almost indispensable, 35, 40 years experience, outstanding. So I would say building the department and putting the procedures in place, writing the job descriptions, doing the interviews, probably had 40 interviews. The recruiting, we've been to UGA, we've been to Lanier Tech, we've done a lot of that. So just putting the whole thing together it's been an undertaking, but it's been enjoyable. It's been very rewarding, and I could not tell you how good I feel about the staff I got. The crew I've got with the couple inspectors and the 2 engineers I've got, I will tell you, I think we've got as good a staff as you could possibly have. It's good attitude, true commitment to the mission, to what's best for the city, to what's best for our department, to what's best for everybody, and just good guys doing a good job with good attitudes. You can't beat. It's a great environment to work in.
That's refreshing to hear, and I hope that everybody listening understands what that really means and how much of a privilege that really is, because you don't get that everywhere.
You do not get that everywhere, and to have a group that jails like this one does, just got a little bit of an athletic feel to it, a lot of aggravating, a lot of picking, a lot of joking, but very serious about what they do. And I'd say, I was thinking today when we talked about this a little, 40 years with Chesh, 35 with me, 35 with Atha. We've probably got 120, 150 years experience in our department right there. So how do you all share that? I know you've got a newer engineer in your department, I would compared to that kind of tenure. How do you all share that knowledge with somebody like that? Because, we're not all going to be around forever. There's going to be people that come in, and we hope to set them up to do jobs better than we've done them. How do you all do that
with what you know?
That's a great question, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's something that every municipality I've been a part of can do better with, and but I will say that I think we're set up as good as we can. When Cheshire and I got here, we knew I was around 59. I think Cheshire's early 60s. We knew we would be here just a few years, and so the whole goal the whole time has been to build something that we could leave here. And we interviewed Patrick Klein Jr. PJ is what we call him, and PJ is a young engineer that's going to be as good as you can get. He's from the Winder area. He loves it here. He wants to be here, and I think the future of Winder from an engineering perspective, and maybe over time, the best continuity that the city could have. He'll be in a position to understand generally a lot of what's going on, and I could see him spending the next 25, 30 years of his career here. And so excellent. I think he could be absolutely an institutional gem to the city of Winder. But I'd say 20% of what we do, Robert Cheshire and I, is along the lines of trying to bring PJ along, trying to shortcut him some things that may have taken us 15, 20 years to learn. Of course, we're a little slow, and he's not. But he just trying to get him where he needs to be, and he's an outstanding young man. He's coming along really good, and I just can't say enough good things about PJ.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the younger employees, when we try to give them a little piece of advice, it's not because we're telling them what to do. It's, hey, we've been there and we've screwed up.
That's right.
We've
exactly
made this mistake.
Yes.
Listen, please,
And that's the thing about PJ is that he wants to learn it. He's not like others are like, oh, don't come at me with another story about. He wants to hear it. He wants to know the mistakes you made and why and what you should have done different. And he truly is the type of kid. I say kid. He's a young man. He's a grown man, but he's a kid to me. He's about my boy's age, but he's truly committed to getting better, and he enjoys all that stuff, and he takes constructive criticism well. He wants to get better. It's kind of like an athletic endeavor to him. It's just whatever it takes for him to get better, and that's his attitude. Well,
that's good. A second ago you mentioned the engineering that can go into something. Can you kind of explain to the people listening, what involvement does engineering have with a project? We can talk about it in terms of the Center Street project, where you may see construction crews out there,
right?
But what does engineering do to get a project ready to go like that people wouldn't see? Because there is that misconception that all engineer does is take out the graph paper and a protractor or something and starts drawing angles.
Right. Well, and so really and truly, good engineering, well done engineering, is really just super detailed planning with the story the way it needs to come out, put on paper, i.e. with a set of plans and specs. So you would want your design engineer to think through everything he can think of that could go wrong. So what might go wrong on Center Street? Where are the problems? What are the issues there? And where are the utilities in the way? And which one needs to be first? And it's almost like a good engineer prior to design needs to see the construction project from beginning to end in his mind's eye, and then design to that. Now, I'm not going to act like we do all that. It's not possible. I mean, there's, the city of Winder is the growth and the amount of construction going on here. There's no way any one team could do it. We've got multiple consultants. It's all we can do with 3 engineers and 2 inspectors to just manage the projects, there's so much design. There's so many things coming up, so many invoices. There's so many sticking points. There's so many things that have to be tended to, that it's all we can do with 3 of us to just manage the engineers that are designing the project. But we've got some good engineers working here, and we do some pretty detailed oversights. We review the plans, we redline them, we send them back to the engineers. They mark them up. We're trying to bring them to the Winder way. We want them to meet our specs. But I think, Jonathan, to what you're talking about, and I think this is very important. The reason that and I think that possibly the original vision, I'd give kudos to the prior council, or the council that came up with the idea that they needed one. I think that a city engineer is a very, take me out of it, so it does. I'm not talking about myself. I certainly don't want to sit here and sound like I'm bragging on myself, but there is a strong need for it, and that is this: the city needs an engineer to provide continuity between multiple projects. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we're looking at a redesign possibly of that MLK Athens May Street intersection. So we're studying that area, and we're looking at this with a consultant that has just that in mind. He's looking only at that area. Well, as we were sitting there evaluating the design, we realized that there's 2, possibly 3 other ongoing projects that there's no way this consultant could have known that other engineering firms were managing that will absolutely impact this. And matter of fact, if done properly and if we're able to coordinate this, the projects will become synergistic. Each one of them would have been good standalone, but will be more than 4 times better if we're able to get all 4 of those integrated together, which is something that only a city engineer would have the knowledge of. There's no way a consultant that's working on a discrete project would have any idea of the other projects. And that coordination and that ability, or that opportunity to put the right projects together and to see them all from a 20,000 foot view, that's where the benefit comes.
Yeah, so you kind of just hit the nail on the head in terms of projects the city's working on. Say I'm a private developer and I'm going to have a project going on. What is my level of involvement with our engineering department? Where do you all come in to make sure that they're doing what the city needs them to do and are consistent with how we want development to take place?
That's a good question too. And I think that was the original vision for the engineering department only. The way that the engineering department interfaces with the developers is through the review process. So an engineer, a developer wants to develop a 20-acre parcel, say, into a subdivision. He'll hire an engineering firm. Engineering firm, of course, will read our code and try to figure out what all it says and look at our specs and our standards, our standard details, our drawings. They'll look at those things, and they will then submit a set of plans. And that set of plans will come to us through iWorks. I know we're going to talk about some technology, but iWorks and that system is a really good system. But that'll come to us in some combination of Robert Cheshire, myself, and PJ will look at all those plans. We'll look at the LDPs, the land disturbance permits. We may look at something associated with some hydrology. We will review on behalf of the city. Then we provide our comments back to the permits and services, the planning team, and they forward those on back to the developer. But we're typically we're behind the scenes reviewing the plans. If it's a deep dive into something that's very specialized, say something like very detailed structural, very detailed geotechnical, say a 30-foot high retaining wall, something that's out of the ordinary, we may call in some outside assistance for just very narrow expertise. But for the most part, nowadays, and I think that was another one of the missions of bringing in engineering, was to try to have the reviews done in-house. And I think we've accomplished that at about a 90-95% level right now.
No, that's great. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. What if I do something wrong? How do you all approach them? How do you kind of coach a developer to make sure they do it, as we say, the Winder way?
When you say do something wrong, you have an example of what you're thinking.
Drainage. It's new developer didn't grade their property right, and it is increasing runoff to another piece of property, or it's putting water into a creek. Their
right.
BMPs or silt fences, nothing's working. How do we correct them, and how do we coach them to do that better?
So what we would do is during the review process, so we're looking at these plans, and these plans are telling us the plans should dictate where the water's going and which pond it's going to and which one. So we'll look at it, and we'll look at the topo provided by the engineer. We'll verify that it is going to the ponds as proposed. We will roughly verify. I mean, these are professional engineers that are signing these things. So there's some level of expectation of professionalism there, but we do spot checks, and we'll check things like, something like there's a detail in the hydrology process called time of concentration, and basically what that means, without putting you to sleep, it has something to do with how long it takes for a certain area of that site to meet its maximum water that it's going to see during that storm event, and that's very discretionary depending upon a lot of conditions, and some small changes with that can make some large changes with respect to the design of the pond. So that's the kind of thing we're on the lookout for. Are these things reasonable? And if not, we'll push back. We'll say, hey, time of concentration in this area looks a little high or a little low, depending on exactly what they're trying to accomplish, and justify this. So there's a lot of our stuff is not as much saying you're wrong, red X, as it is questioning it and requiring further explanation. And typically, if it can't be answered adequately, then we're going toward what we're leaning toward. Maybe it needs to be lower or it needs to be higher, and they can't justify that low number to us. Then we'll force them to move it up.
Yeah, and I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can tell you, I have been somewhere. I previously, many years ago, worked in a beach community, and we had an engineer that was a consultant that lived on the island, and he would go out there with a water hose and just stand in one spot for 30 minutes and watch it, and just watch it to see if they built it right.
Yep,
I mean,
right.
It just literally soak it with a water hose.
Yep. And he's probably measuring time of concentration. He's probably trying to see how long it took for that water to get to whatever the point of measurement was. Yeah. And the thing about it is, and the reason it matters is because it can affect, say, the size of the pond. I mean, if I'm a developer and I bought 30 acres, I don't want a third of my property covered up with pond. So I want to minimize the footprint of that pond. And so there is an incentive to try to push things in the gray zone as far as possible in a certain direction. And that's where we try to say, I'm not sure, but it's not routine that happens, but it does happen sometimes, and sometimes it may just be truly an oversight. But we have to be aware. We don't think everybody's a boogeyman, but we have to be aware that there are incentives for these things to be fudged into the gray zone. Very rarely do we find anything where somebody's just intentionally doing something to upset. Just on behalf of money. We very rarely see that, actually, but we do see pushing into the gray zone, and that's kind of a consultant's job to do that. So we understand that. We understand that's his job to do that, as long as he understands when we push back.
Everybody's got a side they're coming from.
That's exactly right.
So now we'll kind of shift a little bit again, and we'll talk about kind of something you guys probably get questions about a lot, and maybe we can help explain the process to them.
Okay. So you want me to just throw out one?
Oh, I got one for you. Okay. I got one for you. Ready for this?
I got one too, so go ahead.
I'm riding down a road. It's way too bumpy and rough.
Absolutely.
How do you guys determine which road gets paved and when?
Well, that's a really good question, and that's a deep dive, and I'll go into it at medium depth, and you push it whichever way you'd rather go. The roads here are not in very good shape. Surprisingly, have been, for whatever reason, they're just not in very good shape. So we're starting with a PCI, pavement condition index. I think it's somewhere in the high 50s. That's not very good for an average of a network for the 95 to 100 miles that we've got. That's not very good. And so the goal is to bring it up. So there's two things that are required. Obviously, a good bit of money is going to be required. We can talk about some actual numbers here in a minute if you'd like, but it's going to take some money. But there is a huge opportunity here to I'm thinking how I want to say this, to optimize the amount of money that we do get. So you can, with poor prescription, with poor management programs, you can take two systems with the same amount of money, same streets, and if not properly prescribed, if the stitch-in time mentality, if you don't understand the maintenance curve of a street, if you're not looking at all those things, you can significantly, either positively doing things right or negatively, if you're just blindly doing things, you can significantly affect the condition of the streets with the same amount of money. So I can hold money constant and run two different scenarios, and one raises the PCI to a 75 over the next 5 years, and one raises it to a 60. Because it's very important that the right thing is done at the right time for a street. So, you can back of the envelope numbers about 300,000 a mile. We've got roughly 100 miles. So you're talking, I'd have to run some numbers here, but I'm just about to say that
$30 million.
About
right?
$30 million, and then about a 15-year life cycle. So 1 in 15 is 8%. So or 7%. So you would need about 7% of $3 million a year, say up to 10% to really 30 million to really maintain a system. That's just the logistics of a road is 15 years. And so you say, well, if it's going to last 15 years, I got to replace it in 15 years. And so that's the mindset. And I know we're going to talk about that later, about infrastructure in general, but right. That same asset management mindset should be used for everything in the city. And that is that everything should have an expected life cycle, and it should be budgeted and planned for in that manner. And streets is one that we intend to take to the nth degree.
So you're kind of saying that we should look at it, and for the public to understand too, it's just like replacing a vehicle. A road has a life cycle.
That's exactly
a vehicle
right.
only has so many miles you can put on it before you you can patch it, which means you can replace the engine. You can replace the tires, but at some point the entire vehicle has to go. So it's better to maintain it, do it right the first time, and start planning ahead. And now
that's a very good analogy.
I try sometimes.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm from the South. I didn't use all the ones my dad told me. We might confuse a lot of people from that one.
So you're absolutely right. And I think the equivalent on streets, like the changing of the oil, the other thing is proper patching, which Clint, guys, we just as a side note, we just had our pre-construction meeting today with our on-call patching bid. So we're fixing to put probably $100,000 up to $500,000 between utilities money and T-Splice. We're going to put between $100,000 and $500,000 worth of patching on the ground probably in the next year. We had the meeting this morning with the contractor. Okay. We're getting fired up about that. That's going to be a huge improvement. And then, as you know, right now the $1.2 million major M&R paving project, MLK, is in the process of getting paid right now. So the T-Splice money that the public voted for us is hard at work. I mean, we're way out in front of it. Actually, we'll have to pare back the next year or two. Just because we're tracking ahead of trying to put it on the ground. We're tracking ahead of of a steady state budget across 5 years.
Yeah, and I mean, for something, I probably have too much experience with it. What the public probably wants to take from that is we're using the T-Splice money, but we can only use it as it comes in.
Right.
And it's as people shop, and then we'll have to renew it. It's not a never-ending pot of money. So you all are trying to make sure that we're spending it wisely and getting the most bang for the buck. And I think that kind of leads into the next question. Gerard, what's your vision for our infrastructure over the next decade? How do you prioritize what we're going on? You've got Center Street ready to rock and roll, and that's, as you said in the video that people can find out there, it is a generational project. This thing has been waiting for generations. What's next?
Well, so what's next is one of the things is refining our processes. PJ, because he will be here for the next many years, hopefully, we're discussing right now software for streets. That's extremely important to me. A well-managed street network. I know everybody, and I'm the same way. For the neighborhood I live in my street, I want my street paved. It's rarely that for us. The street is just a big network to us. Now, at the individual level, at the homeowner level, absolutely, I understand that they don't like the fact that their street doesn't look good. But from our standpoint, they're just part of a network. We've got they live on a half-mile street. We got another 97 and a half miles otherwise. And although I understand their complaint or their position, I need them to understand mine. And that is that our goal is to do the best for the network as a whole. And so there's certain things that requires, and we intend to do those. So one of the things we will do is the software, especially with a little bit of AI and things that are available now, we can leverage some of that and take advantage of it and have it assist us with selection of streets. A lot right now, I know we were going to talk about selection of streets, and a lot of selection of streets right this second. All of ours are so bad that we don't have to look far to find something that needs to be done. So we run it by two. We have two primary axioms that we think about right now. Later it'll get more refined, but right now, because they're so bad, there's two primary things we look at. We try to put asphalt into place where it affects the most people, period. So that's collectors for us. That's streets like MLK, the streets that have higher traffic counts.
Sims Road,
1,500 cars per day or so or more. Yeah. We're really going after those first. The most people are affected by them. So we try to put asphalt in the places that affect the most people. Generally, that's one of the rules. But the other one, and the more important one, is, and we talk about this all the time, and we really get into the details on this, but it is the thought process of what are you going to do to this street right here? Say it's Langford, or say it's the one the one we're hitting this time. I think it's Langford that goes by the school. What needs to be done here? The question is, what can you do? There's about 10 different things you could do to a street that gets the lowest amount of dollars per square yard per extended year of life. And so everything comes down to that. So are we going to just patch it? Well, how many years will that extend the life of that road? Can we just patch it? And what is the dollars per square yard for the whole road per year? So maybe that would say, okay, we can spend $25,000 on that road and it will get us another 5 years before we have to do anything. So 25,000 for 5 years. Maybe we overlay it. It costs $275,000. We get 15 years. You're looking at what is the extension of life per square yard. And so, and that's the way that we try to optimize the selection of the streets is based on that logic right there. Now, when we get to software, it'll take that to a significantly deeper level. The software it's incredible, really, when you see it and you go through all of the legwork on the front end to set the tables up and have it truly model your street network. When you get that in place, you've got something that's almost invaluable, because you can tweak that thing like a conductor in an orchestra. You can give council numbers for funding that are outstanding. I mean, they're just extremely accurate numbers. And you can tell them, okay, council, I mean, it's up to you. You don't like the streets. If you want the streets to go from a 59 to a 70, we need click, $1.7 million a year for the next 7 years. That level of detail is available through the software.
So, you kind of hit on technology and how that helps you all do your job. What a lot of people don't see until is the fact that, hey, Gerard Engineering is coming to a city council meeting. They're asking for $1.4 million. What goes into the process before it gets to that point? Because that's a lot of times that's all people see.
That's right.
What goes into something like that before it gets there?
That's a great question. And that it is literally the tip of the iceberg. In the truest sense of the word, you're seeing 1% of what went into it. The discussion amongst the engineering team, we may even involve others like Clint's guys, the public works guys may be involved. But there will be a lot of, we walk every one of these streets. So let's say we identify the collectors, which we have. We will get out there and we will literally walk them with a paint can, and we are marking them for what we see. And as we're walking, there's 2 or 3 of us walking every one of them. We're talking about what needs to be done to the street, what caused the failure, what needs to be done to hopefully prevent it from happening again. And we don't have this is the thing, Jonathan, we don't have the luxury of killing mosquitoes with sledgehammers and just saying, like some do, we just come in here with 3 inches of asphalt. We just don't have that luxury. 3 inches of asphalt is extremely expensive. Yeah. And unless you're just covered up in money, you can't kill mosquitoes with sledgehammers. You have to go in there and try to optimize the repair, the dollars per square yard. And so anyway, to what we would do, they would all be walked, they would all be marked for patching and or other, and each single street, matter of fact, even in the individual, MLK that's being paid right now has got, between Midland and Hazel, it has got 3 different prescriptions for what's being done there. There's not one thing. There's not one treatment
to the whole thing. You've got 3 different variations as to how that road is getting taken care of.
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing. So you've got all these projects going on, and we're doing a great job as a city right now of this podcast is one of them, of communicating to our citizens, our residents, our businesses on how we're operating and how we're trying to be smart stewards of these taxpayer dollars and be efficient. How do you all communicate? What do you all want to see happen for the public to know that what engineering is doing every day?
Engineers typically don't like to get out there and
you and accountants, I can tell you that much.
They don't like to do that. I don't mind doing it because I don't feel like I'm doing it for myself. I feel like I'm doing it for my team, and I feel like I'm doing it for the city. I want the people to have some confidence in their engineering department. I want the citizens and the council to feel like that they've got some people here that have some experience with it and are able to hopefully competently and cost effectively give them quality and give them as much bang for the buck as they can possibly get. I think Sarah does a good job of putting our stuff out. Sarah and Jacob do an outstanding job of getting things we've got going that they feel like are of interest to the city as a whole. the things that I'm interested in are the things you just asked, the details behind the final recommendation for the $1.4 million. I wouldn't be afraid to say, Jonathan, that by the time we get a paving bid ready, that we've got amongst the engineering team, we could easily have 800 to 1,000 man hours in that bid easily. I mean, that probably more than that. I haven't sat down and figured it out, but it's just a lot of thought, and we feel like it's worth it to put it there because we're talking millions of dollars, and millions of dollars spent properly can make a difference for the citizens.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm sure the bids for Center Street, for East Stevens Street didn't just come together. It took it took partners to get that going.
Right.
The public's going to see the amazing benefit, but they don't see what goes into it ahead of time. And we just hope that we're doing a good job of letting them know what's happening. If you could tell everyone what's one thing they would be surprised to know about the engineering department, what would that be? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, I think I would say one of the things they might be surprised at is the level of seriousness and commitment to doing what's best with the citizens' dollar. It's not. I have a kind of a vision of government that may not be like that. Maybe it is that the people don't care. They feel like they're protected, that there's nothing no harm can come to them, and they're just going to sit up there and do what they want to do, and nothing could be further from the truth. When we do have X amount to pave with, we take it very seriously, and we try to figure out everything that we can. I would like to think that the citizens, if they saw the level of detail and they saw the level of effort toward trying to be protective and, as you said, a good steward of their funds, I think they would be pleased. They may not like our selections, they may not like the things we decide to do, but I don't think they would question the intent of the group. And that's another one of the things about this group that is so good is they're all bought into that. They realize that's what we're trying to do, and they want to be a part of that. And it's just a good feeling to be a part of a group that wants to do what's best for the citizens that we work for. We do remind ourselves routinely that these people pay our salaries, and we appreciate
every day.
That.
That's right. So this is going to be, follow me on this question. It's going to come off a little weird.
All right.
Hugh Freeze, that's the coach of Auburn's football team, right?
Right.
So if Hugh Freeze came here one day and said, "Hey, Gerard, we're great. We're proud that you're an Auburn fan, an Auburn graduate. Take me to one thing you're proud of in the city of Winder." Where would you take him?
That's a good question.
You thought it was going to be a football question.
I did. You had me ready for an Auburn crack. One thing I'm proud of, golly, we've done several things that I'm proud of. I think as we begin to roll, because the Center Street project is such a big problem, and it's such a debilitating thing for the city. I mean, it really does just basically shut us down. And so I think the Center Street project and the fact that, and we came in, listen, we're just moving the baton on down the road. There were others that had gotten this a long way. So we picked this thing up midstream, but to be a part of this and to hopefully solve a generational issue it's a real opportunity. And again, the team, we realize that we're lucky to be able to be a part of something that and kudos to the councils for putting that money toward that. There's other things from an engineering perspective, you couldn't put it in a better spot. Now, I'm not a planner. I'm not in social services. So I appreciate the City of Winder Council for putting that money towards such a important physical drainage project on the ground. So
I understand that. Something that I should have asked a few minutes ago, and just something to clarify for whoever's listening to this podcast. Explain to the people why there are certain areas of the city we don't have control over. Specifically, I'm referring to the main thoroughfares, the GDOT properties, where we get a lot of those questions that the city does not have any control over that.
That's right. And I'm glad you said that. So when I'm talking about streets, I'm talking about the ones that are right-of-ways that are the responsibility of the City of Winder. So that's a great idea to mention that. And so the main routes through town, Broad Street, May Street, 81, all the state routes that come through, the maintenance of those are 100% GDOT. Now, we are trying, Jonathan, I think we've talked about this, that as we identify, we just finished the transportation improvement plan. And that's one of the things that we were going to talk about is just that how the citizens have impacted that, and they did. The citizens definitely impacted the transportation improvement plan, but that plan, a lot of the issues transportation wise that we have are on state routes, and so it's like when the consultant that did the study for us said at the council is that. We're going to have to, it's going to take a coordinated effort with GDOT to fix these things. And so we're going to have to find a way, and we're in the process of doing this, building relationships with GDOT, and let's get them, I want them to feel our pain. I want them to see the congestion and feel the congestion that we have here. And then what I want to do is, what I would like to do is develop relationships with them where we can begin to parse out what part of this might we help with and what part can you do. But they are 100% theirs. And so as it stands now, we have no, there's a pothole on Broad, we can't go out there and do anything. There's a light not working on Broad, we can't have anything. There's a parking place that's
there's traffic on Broad.
There's traffic on Broad. All that is GDOT/state route issues that we just don't have the jurisdiction on those. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Gerard, you mentioned the transportation improvement plan. Can you kind of elaborate on how the public was able to be involved in that and what kind of benefit it served for that process?
I'd be glad to. So we had a very involved citizen participation process in the transportation improvement plan. So when we scoped the plan, a large part of the scope of that plan was to provide funds and availability for the public and the resources so that the public would have the ability to have input. So we had multiple after hours events. We had a consulting firm that managed it for us. They had several pop-up events at various functions in the city, and we really felt like the citizens got a very good chance to voice their opinions, provide input to transportation needs, to problems in the city. And the reason I feel like it, and it was impactful. It was impactful in that the things that we studied, the locations where we think the accidents are, or where we studied the possibility of accidents, where we studied various traffic-related issues and transportation issues. A lot of it was generated by citizen comments. The reason I feel like the citizens had such a large impact was because our consultant told us that the participation rate in Winder, as far as per capita, that went onto the website, that made comments, that the number of clicks, the metrics that they measure, that our participation was as high as anybody that they'd ever worked with on this. And they do these every day. And I was kind of proud of that. I was proud to think that the citizens care enough to go out there and try to do that. And then, kind of out of respect for that, we said, well, what did they say? And what are those recommendations? And so their comments turned into part of the study that turned into the recommendations that we got in the tip, which we will, by the way, be bringing to the council for adoption on the June 3rd meeting. So hopefully the council will adopt the plan, just basically acknowledging receipt of the plan, and then we'll use that plan for a lot of things, involvement with GDOT, funding opportunities. There'll be a lot of things that we'll use that plan for, but the public was a large part of those recommendations.
Yeah, I can support that. I can, from experience, say our public here is very involved. A lot of people say they want their public involved, but then when they get involved, they're like, well, why'd you really get involved?
Right.
Here, I think we get a lot of constructive dialogue.
Right.
Sometimes you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's not merit to it.
Right.
I think the involvement's great. Now, can you kind of explain, yes, we got the involvement. Yes, we're going to have a list of priority projects. How does that benefit us, say, when we're applying for a grant and this project is listed in that transportation plan?
Okay, a good question. So maybe the evolution of just take any particular project and then say that maybe the public recommended that this needs to be done, and sure enough, we looked at it, the engineers and we looked at it, and now we discovered there are accidents there and there are significant delays there. Then maybe we take it to the next level, which we've done in a couple of places. We do some concept level looks to see, okay, let's get into the details. We've been looking at it at 20,000 feet. Let's look at it at 10,000 feet. What are the traffic counts in there? What are the delays? And do we have any initial ideas of what could be done to improve that? And that can go from the citizens' comment to a recommendation in the plan, to a somewhat deeper dive, down to a concept plan, and then through to design, and then into budgeting, and then turn into a project. So we could end up with something like, we don't know exactly what we'll end up with, but that MLK, Athens, May Street area, we may do something down there. We're continuing to dive deeper on that, and there were a lot of public input comments about that area and the traffic congestion in that area, and it will eventually turn into a project.
Well, that's amazing. Well, that's good to know, and I know the public is probably happy that their input was received and utilized for something like that. So that's a great answer.
Good. Well, thank you.
So just a trivia question, and I hope I'm thinking you're the person to ask, just so the public can understand. How many traffic lights does the city of Winder operate?
0.
I want everybody to hear that again. It's 0. The city of Winder has no control over any red light in the city of Winder. Right. We continuously, I know Gerard's team, our public works team, will consistently report issues, delays at traffic lights, but the State Department of Transportation controls every traffic light in the city.
They control the traffic lights. They control the quality of the pavement, the maintenance of the pavement. Everything to do with these state routes is maintained by the GDOT.
Well, Gerard, I think we've ran through all the questions we had. I think that the public has probably gotten a lot of good information about engineering. Is there anything else you want to let the public know that their engineering department does for them every day that they may not know, or that you want to leave them with?
I can't think of anything, Jonathan. I thought the questions were good. I thought got a chance to bring out a lot of things. There's probably a lot of other things I'm just not thinking of right now, but because we've got a lot going on. One thing I guess I would add is that there is a lot to be done here, and there is a lot of work. There's a very heavy volume of work going on in our department now. So we're trying our absolute best to not let things fall through the cracks, but we're getting in situations where we're just almost overwhelmed. So there's so much going on that I would just say the purpose of all that is just to say, if you're trying to get us, or if you're expecting something, just please be patient with us, because we've got just about all we can get to right now.
So I think we call that job security sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's going to be a breaking point in terms of what we can accommodate in terms of development, but we appreciate what you all do. And I hope that everyone really kind of listen to this podcast well to understand everything that we have going on and all the different departments that engineering for the city of Winder touches on a daily basis. So Gerard, I thank you and I appreciate you. And we'll leave you with a go Dogs.
Well, listen, I appreciate you having me, and I think you're doing a good job, Jonathan. I appreciate the stuff the council's doing, and I appreciate you having me on here, and glad to sit down and talk with you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Winder Works. We hope you enjoyed the show today. Stay informed by following the City of Winder on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure to visit www.cityofwinder.com to learn more about Winder, the City of Opportunity.